Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into the environmental philosophy of Fethullah Gülen.
A Turkish Islamic scholar.
Right.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at some excerpts from a paper, an academic paper, that was originally written in Turkish and has been translated into English for us to sort of unpack and explore.
It sounds fascinating already, and I think what's really interesting is that it's not just about, like typical environmentalism. It's like he brings in Islamic teachings and even Sufi mysticism.
Yeah, which, by the way, emphasizes a personal experience with the divine.
Right. Whoa.
So there's that aspect to it as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here. So
Yeah.
maybe a good place to start is okay, what is humanity's place in the universe?
Yeah.
How does Gülen view that?
Yeah, he believes that humans are unique, we are the most honorable creation.
Okay.
And we are endowed with incredible abilities, but with that honor comes a huge responsibility.
Oh, interesting.
And he really emphasizes that it's not about us ruling over nature,
Okay.
but more about being caretakers of nature.
Okay, so being stewards almost.
Yeah, stewards, exactly. He uses this term khalifa,
Okay.
which means steward of the earth. And this actually ties into this concept of emaneti kubra,
Okay.
which is which translates to the great trust. So basically, we're entrusted by God to care for all of creation.
Yeah, it's a powerful way to kind of reframe that relationship.
Well, yeah.
It's not just about us. It's about
the whole system.
yeah, that whole system.
Yeah, the well-being of everything.
Wow. Okay.
Which leads us to another fascinating point he makes. He sees nature as a reflection of the divine.
That sounds pretty deep.
Yeah.
How does he explain that?
So he believes that every single part of nature, from the smallest insect to the vast oceans,
Okay.
reflects God's names and attributes.
Okay.
Imagine the universe as a book, and each element within it is like a verse, revealing God's wisdom.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, would it be safe to say that, harming the environment would be,
Tearing a page out of that book.
tearing a page out of that book?
Yeah, and he actually ties this back to eminent.
Okay.
That idea of trust, right?
Uh-huh.
So damaging the environment is a violation of that trust.
It makes it very serious then.
Yeah, it carries this serious moral weight. And, it's not just about avoiding pollution.
Right.
It's this much deeper responsibility to
Yeah.
protect and nurture the world around us.
It makes me think about how often, we might recycle, we might try to conserve water.
Yeah.
But do we really think about it in terms of this greater
Responsibility.
Yeah, this responsibility to God almost, or to
Yeah, and to creation itself.
Okay, yeah. And he takes it a step further, right? With this concept of
Right.
nature as
A divine verse.
divine verse, yeah.
Yeah, or ayat.
Ayat. Okay,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
So in the Quran, there's this idea of signs from God, kevni ayetler,
Okay.
that can be found all throughout nature.
Okay.
Right. And so for Gülen, observing the natural world is like reading those verses
Oh,
and understanding God's wisdom and power.
it's beautiful. It's
It's about finding spiritual connection
yeah.
through the natural world.
So even just a walk in the woods could have a deeper spiritual significance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this profound respect for nature
Uh-huh.
also translates into practical guidelines for how we live our lives.
Okay.
He places a really strong emphasis on balance,
Okay.
sustainability, and avoiding waste.
So it's not just this
Abstract.
abstract philosophy.
That's real world.
Yeah. Implications.
Yeah. He condemns any form of wastefulness.
Okay.
And really emphasizes using resources responsibly.
It's so relevant for what we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
Climate change, resource depletion.
It's like he's reminding us of this timeless wisdom that's even more relevant now.
Yeah, it's fascinating how those teachings connect to these contemporary issues.
Yeah.
But what I find really compelling is that he didn't just talk the talk.
No.
He actually lived by these principles.
Yes, he was known for being incredibly frugal,
Okay.
leading a very simple life,
Uh-huh.
and showing compassion for all living beings.
It's his actions really reflected those beliefs.
Yes, and there are stories, about how careful he was even with using paper.
Oh, wow.
Reflecting this commitment to avoiding waste.
That's,
Yeah.
it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually live it.
You need to embody it.
Yeah, I think that makes his message even more powerful.
Absolutely, yeah. And he was such a strong advocate for continuous learning. He believed that environmental awareness needed to be an ongoing process, right?
Yeah.
So he actively supported initiatives to promote or increase environmental awareness.
So, like, what kind of initiatives?
Oh, like from establishing NGOs
Right.
to promoting publications and organizing events.
He was very active.
He's very
It
active.
sounds like he was all about taking, environmentalism from being like an abstract concept and like actually
putting it into
practice.
A lived experience.
Yeah, a lived experience.
Yeah, he was a firm believer in collective action.
Okay.
And that raising awareness is key to creating lasting change.
So education and action go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here.
They have to work together.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is really interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It seems like Gülen had this really like holistic view, weaving together different aspects of life and faith and
Absolutely.
everything.
Yeah.
What resonates most with you from his perspective?
For me, it's how he seamlessly blends Islamic theology, Sufi mysticism, and ecological awareness.
It's not about separating these things, but recognizing their interconnectedness.
It's not every day you find someone speaking about environmental issues with such a deep, spiritual foundation,
A spiritual foundation.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's where his message can be especially powerful.
Okay.
It speaks not only to logic and reason,
Yeah.
but also to that innate human desire for connection with something greater than ourselves.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sometimes environmental discussions can feel really heavy.
Yeah.
On
At the facts.
The facts and figures.
And figures.
Yeah.
But they lack that
deeper
emotional or spiritual resonance.
Yeah.
He provides that missing piece.
Right.
It's not just about what we should do, but why we should do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like connecting our actions to a deeper purpose.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier this idea of nature as a reflection of the divine, which is, it's such a beautiful concept.
It is.
But I'm curious how that perspective challenges the way that we typically view the environment.
Well, it really pushes back against that anthropocentric view.
Okay.
That humans are at the center of everything.
Yeah.
And that the world exists primarily for our benefit.
Right.
And that kind of thinking has, in many ways,
contributed to
the environmental crisis we face today.
It's like we've forgotten that we're part of something bigger.
Right, that we're part of this larger
connected
web of life.
Yeah.
And that's where Gülen's focus on balance and harmony comes in.
Okay.
He reminds us that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for the entire ecosystem.
So it's not just reducing our carbon footprint or using less plastic.
Right.
It's really a fundamental shift.
It's a shift in how we see
ourselves.
Place in the world.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of reverence and respect for all of creation.
That's a big ask, though.
It is.
How do we even begin to shift our mindset that drastically?
Well, Gülen believed that education was paramount.
Okay.
He saw it as a key tool for not only increasing environmental awareness, but also addressing those social and economic injustices.
Oh, interesting.
That are deeply intertwined with environmental issues.
So for him, environmentalism wasn't just about protecting nature.
Right.
It was about
social
responsibility
and justice.
Yes, as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. He believed in empowering individuals and communities to advocate for their own well-being and the health of their environment.
So it's like that concept of environmental justice almost.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to that core concept of eminent.
Right.
The trust.
Right.
If we consider ourselves caretakers of creation, we have to consider the well-being of all people, especially those who are most impacted by environmental degradation.
It's recognizing that interconnectedness, right? Between
of all things.
Yeah. Human well-being, social justice, the health of the planet. We can't address one without considering the others.
You can't separate them.
Yeah.
It's a holistic approach that challenges us to think beyond ourselves and our immediate needs.
Now, I want to get practical for a moment.
Okay.
How can we apply Gülen's teachings to tackle these specific environmental challenges that that we're facing today, like
Right.
climate change.
Well, his emphasis on avoiding waste
Okay.
and sustainable living
Uh-huh.
provides a really solid foundation.
Right.
Remember how we were saying how he lived a simple life
Yeah.
and was incredibly careful with resources? He
Wow.
truly walked the walk.
Yeah, his actions really spoke volumes.
They did.
Yeah.
And we can draw inspiration from that.
Okay.
You know, it's about making conscious choices in our daily lives.
Like what kind of things?
Like reducing our reliance on fossil fuels,
Okay.
opting for public transportation,
Mhm.
being mindful of our energy consumption,
Good.
supporting sustainable businesses,
Yeah.
using our voices to advocate for change.
So there's a lot of like tangible steps that we can take.
There are.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that our collective choices have a real impact.
Yeah.
You know? If enough people embrace these principles and put them into practice,
Yeah.
we can create that ripple effect of positive change that Gülen believed in.
This has given me so much to think about. It's a different way of like approaching environmentalism,
It is.
and one that feels like hopeful and empowering.
Yeah, there's a sense of responsibility.
Yes.
Yes, but also a sense of purpose and meaning
Mhm.
in being part of something larger than ourselves.
And there's beauty in finding that connection to the divine through nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It deepens our understanding of our place in the world
Mm-hmm.
and inspires us to act as responsible caretakers
Yeah.
of this incredible gift we've been given.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
it has.
You know, we've covered so much ground
Yeah.
exploring Gülen's perspective.
Yeah, his unique perspective
Yeah.
on our relationship with the environment.
Yeah. And yet it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
We've just started. There's so much more to uncover, so much more to ponder, so much more to like connect with, you know?
It's true. It's true. It's
Yeah,
a reminder that learning is a continuous journey,
it is.
especially with a thinker as profound as Gülen.
Absolutely.
But before we get lost in the depths of contemplation,
Yes.
I think it's time to bring this deep dive
To a close.
to a close.
Yeah.
But not without leaving our listeners with a final thought to carry with them.
Something to spark further reflection.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, you know, throughout our conversation,
Huh?
we've been circling around this powerful concept of eminent,
Right. That divine trust.
that divine trust that we hold as caretakers of creation.
That we're not just like inhabitants of
Yeah.
this planet, but like
We're stewards.
stewards, yeah.
Yeah, responsible for its well-being.
And that brings us to, I think, a really crucial question.
Okay.
How can we as individuals
Yes.
translate this really profound idea
Uh-huh.
into like concrete action in our daily lives?
It's easy to get caught up in, you know,
Yeah.
the intellectual,
Yeah.
philosophical aspects.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's about bridging that gap
Right.
between thought and action.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this challenge.
Okay.
What does it mean for you to be a steward of the earth? What choices, big or small,
Yeah.
can you make to honor that trust?
That sacred trust, yeah.
How can you contribute to a world
Uh-huh.
where both humanity and nature can thrive?
Those are questions worth pondering.
They are.
And I think Gülen's teachings offer us a beautiful and inspiring framework for finding our own answers.
So go out there and make those ripples.
We'll make those ripples.
But until next time, keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning and keep diving deep.